Okay.
Is this on?
It's recording. We're good to go.
Alright.
So now we have to talk about it for 30 minutes, and then we have to get a picture at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So this is Will Stevens.
Shane Hughes.
Do I see my name?
Yes, you're here.
Charles Verholic.
Okay, and we read Friday Night Lights.
Is this picking this up? Is this too far away?
No, that's good. It's good. Trust me. So we're reading Friday Night Lights.
It's by H.G. Bissinger.
And basically, it just depicts the town of Odessa, and basically their
They're winning his high school football team in Texas history.
So yeah, I know there's a what is there, a TV show on it?
The
There's a movie.
the TV show is loosely based on it, but there's actually a movie about the team in Odessa Perman, and I think it's in the movie. I think it's a great movie, but it's not. You know, when we read the book is nonfiction. Everything there is documented as it happened. Bissinger was a photographer, and he took notes on the season, and it was an actual legitimate piece of history, if you will, for the high school football team. The movie itself is based on the same people, but it is not. It's
Like not an
it's-
exact representation.
it's not exact.
That's how it
Sometimes
was.
it's switched up.
I haven't seen the movie yet though, but I know
It's a good movie. It's not the book though.
I know just from reading it
Hello.
though. Yo, what up? It's Bruce. Just from reading it, like I wanna watch the movie, just to see how like closely things are like resembled in it, and like this was like
Well-
such a great book.
So I know you guys saw. They made it to the semifinals in the book. The book, they made it to the semifinals against. They were playing Dallas Carter High School, but in the movie they played it in the state final. So it's not the same thing.
They want well yeah.
They
when you-
want to create a bigger impact.
Correct. Like when you watch
Oh,
a
the-
movie, you
the
don't.
film.
Yeah.
When you want to be like motivated by like a movie, you want to
Yeah.
like have people actually watch it. Whereas a book is more of like football fanatics who like are actually gonna sit down and take time to read a football book. Whereas like any Joe Schmo can watch a movie, basically.
Also in the movie, in the book it's really focused on the high school athletes and their experiences. It's like way more in depth. Talks about their training and all that. In the movie, it's like there are some scenes that are questionable in terms of appropriateness watching.
Considering today, yeah.
So in the book they don't depict that. In the movie they do, and that's another difference. That
Well, yeah, like even like we just came off of our football season, and like some of the stuff that's in it is like some of the stuff they got away with back then, like we would never get away with now. Like we have to be careful with our health and everything, and back then they would do like anything to get in shape.
in the book and the movie, but it is talked about briefly in the book. There are scenes where they go out and they have a party, and they aren't really concerned. I know Chavez, he's one of the defensive backs and running backs and slash receiver in the book. He tells Mike Winchell, he's not in a good home necessarily in terms of how much money they have.
Well, that's how a lot of the players were then.
Yeah, especially in this time.
But I mean, Mike is just
Yeah.
depicted in that way. Mike's mother is not the sharpest tool in the shed, and she struggles a lot. So Mike works, and then Mike is the quarterback for the winningest football team in Texas football history, and that put a lot of pressure on him. And Chavez, like I was saying, he was pushing him to go to a party, and I think for a lot of kids today, and even back then, if somebody was like, "Hey, we're going to this house at this time. Be there, be square." It was like, "Yeah, whatever." 'Cause
Yeah,
you
there's
probably
nothing-
won't get in trouble.
Everything today is recorded. It's
yeah, especially in the age of the internet, all this stuff.
And
It's like this could have been much worse.
even like God.
I think even a bigger point is when you play high school football in Texas. I bet even today it's relevant. If you play high school football in Texas, your community does not want you out.
No.
So if they found
no,
out you were
no.
doing something, they'd find a way.
Yeah, it's because it's
To
this big
hide
football
it.
culture. Like this
And-
is your job essentially.
Another note.
Don't screw around with it.
This is after the book was made. Dallas Carter High School was actually they lost their state title in 1988. So in the book, for the 1988 season, Permian, they make the semifinals in the Texas state playoffs.
Yeah.
They lose to Dallas Carter 14-9. Dallas Carter won the state title a week later against Judson High School, I believe.
I think, yeah.
If you want to check that, you can. But I believe it's Judson High School. But a few years later, I think it was 3 or 4 years later, Dallas Carter was they were stripped of their state title because their players weren't academically eligible. Half of them couldn't even graduate because they didn't have enough credits, and they took, I don't want to use the term Joe courses because I feel like if they're in a school as a course, they're valuable in some way. But they were Joe courses that they should have passed.
There were ones that
and they couldn't pass
were required.
it. So
even, God,
they almost got they were playing against ineligible players.
even like injuries and anything that requires a player to not be able to play is a killer. Even this year, on our team, Louis Natali got hurt right off the bat. Matt Listowskis got hurt right off the bat, and
And Mike Shaw got hurt later in the season. That really hurt us.
correct. Even though it's just oh, it's a player, but it hurts the
It's
team
not just
mentality.
the player, it's the team. It's this family mentality that's instilled in these Friday Night Lights.
That's a great point about our team because obviously and I know you watch the games, Charles.
Yeah.
Shane, we're there every day. We know what's going on. When you lose that talent, and I'm gonna relate this to the book in a second. I'm just gonna talk about our team. When you lose talent, and I'm not even gonna use the word talent. When you lose guys that put the work in to make themselves solid football players, not just good teammates, but actually solid football players that are gonna contribute to what the scoreboard's gonna say, and you lose those people, it's devastating. But I will say I'm happy with the way we responded because we lost virtually most stars that we were playing with, and we still earned our way to the playoff berth. Now, I'm gonna talk. my bad, Miss Tar. I'm that voice crack, but
It's okay.
yeah, I'm growing up. Anyway, in the book, James Miles, the running back for Permian, tears his knee up.
Beginning of the season.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Booby Miles, he's like that big. He's like our Mike Malone.
He was supposed to be that star player of
he's
the
the
team.
big guy.
And USC was visiting him at practice. I mean, that's big time. They know who he's playing for, and he's a standout player. Tears his knee up.
Notre Dame was there. Did you say that?
Notre Dame was there.
I think.
I'm pretty sure all the Texas schools were there, obviously, trying to keep the hometown kid. But that brings up the point when they lost Booby, and Chris Comer came in to run the ball. I relate that to our team because we had young guys step up and we had guys who did not play a lot step up and try to play on a team that was trying to find its identity. And Permian, I would say, it's so tradition rich. I mean, they had 4 state titles prior to the season even starting, and so the 4 state titles. There's a tradition that they need to hold their end of the bargain, and a key puzzle piece to this team was Booby Miles.
Imagine
when he tore his knee up.
Could you even think about he spent his whole off season and all the years building up to it to do this, just to tear his ACL, and now he basically has to sit on the bench and watch everything unfold out in front of him. There goes his scholarships, there goes his ability to play, possibly even break a state record, and he's done.
Another thing I want to talk about in the book, James or Booby Miles, whatever you want to call him, he's definitely he's a fun-loving dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking to have a good time and he wants to enjoy his time. In the movie, he's kind of depicted as a cocky guy, and he's not really focusing on. So he's depicted as definitely a fun-loving guy in the book, but in the movie, he's a cocky dude.
I know in the beginning he was when they brought in this new kid who was supposed to be the new running back, at first he was like a little bit upset, like anyone would be, but like he kind of like came to the conclusion that like he can't do anything about it, and the only thing that he could possibly do was be like this leader figure and basically like guide him into where he should be and how to become
he
better.
Took that like mentor role. That's really important for
I mean,
all teams.
you have to. Even this year with us, like a lot of it's gonna be related to our team, but like there were kids who never played a position before, and our injured players would have to come in and help guide them to where they should be because like we needed them. Like, so what? You lost a player. It's gonna be sad at first, but you have to be able to get over the hump, and you have to be able to like do what you'd be able to do without them. If you get what I'm saying.
It's definitely something Coach Rep reiterates constantly to us, is, next man up. And you don't have to be suited up to be a leader. And I think James Miles did that
That's
pretty
very
well
true.
based on what Bissinger was saying in the book.
Yeah, that was kind of like for Shane and I, we played lacrosse our freshman year, and that was kind of like how Sam Stevens was. He was injured, he tore his ACL, but he took that leadership role even without his pads and his jersey on.
It's important to have those on the team because I felt like I understand our football team's been in like a slump, but I do feel like that we've had like a low point. I still feel like we've had these leader figures that have like helped guide us through it, whereas in some years maybe like a lot of the kids got angry or mad and like basically just like threw away the season. And like we're coming up on our senior year and we don't want to just throw away our season. So no matter what happens, we're gonna have to like fight through it. We're gonna have to work together and basically build the best team that's possible.
All right. I think we talked enough about preseason and what was going on. I think it's time we get into the season and how they were working with their team. And anyway, start of the season, Permian has these high hopes. And again, I mean, the book's called A Town, a Team, and a Dream. I think that speaks for itself on the mentality of the whole town of Odessa. They expect a state title year in, year out.
Yeah, this was kind of like us after we won the basketball state championship. We kind of
Just
like
kind of
we
everybody
expected
expects.
big things from the team.
Yeah, I think, I know it's two different sports, but it's like the same concept. When they come out, they dominate initially, and it looks like nobody's going to stop them. And really, nobody would have stopped them if they're, I think if some of their injuries didn't happen, and some of the injuries didn't happen. I just lost my train of thought.
Didn't they lose to their rivals like one of the first year games?
I was going to transition that
believe
later.
they did.
Oh, okay.
They lost to Midland Lee
Yeah.
about mid-year. So just like we do here, Texas has district titles. Each part of the state is divided into its own district.
Yeah, kind of like we have it.
Yeah, we have districts too. In Texas, especially in the district that Odessa Permian's in, it is very competitive, and the winner goes to the playoff. Now, who's in their way? It's arguably the biggest rival in the Midwest for high school football. They had to beat Midland Lee, and it's constantly talked about leading up to the game, how important that game is. And, if you're not a district champion in Texas, you're not going to state playoff,
Yeah.
which is like how it is in Pennsylvania. You need to win your district championship to make state playoff. What happens, right? Midland Lee upsets them.
They blew
At
them
home.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's a picture in the book of all the players in tears. Mike Winchell was hurt, telling everybody that he was sorry for not playing the game he did. And I think that's a perfect representation of how some people are after a high school football loss, that people don't actually realize if you don't play the game or if you don't pay attention to the game.
But what I liked about it is, so they lost their first game, their first conference game to Marshall.
Yeah.
And then, but they bounced back and they blew out their second game, but then they once again lost their following game to Midland Lee. They ended up finishing the season 7-2, which is still...
Yeah, you have to think about who they're playing,
Which is still...
and what
yeah.
state they're playing in.
They're
Those
playing
are
in
good-
Texas. They're playing remarkable teams. And to come back starting, 2-2, to to finish 7-2, like that's like nuts. Like that's just like the mentality that you have to
Yeah,
to
you
keep
gotta
moving
be
forward.
some mentality monsters right there. That's hard work. That's hustle.
You know,
That's impressive.
I think people don't realize the how necessary it is in any sport to rally. You're gonna lose a game. You know, it's rare that you're gonna go through your high school career and not lose a game, consistently win state titles. It's just not gonna happen. These guys, they go 2-2, like we said at the start. It's not easy to, especially when you lose to your rival, and it's almost like you can go 1-9 on the year, but if you win that game, it feels like you almost like your season was a complete hit.
Yeah, that was like if we would beat Prep and
You can
lose
go
all the
1-9,
rest of the
but you
games.
beat
Like
certain-
our freshman year, I remember my freshman. I think he played with us, but we ended up. We didn't have a very good season, but we beat Prep, and that's the only thing I remember from that season was beating Prep. And
I'm a Michigan fan. I'm gonna relate this to Permian. It's Michigan Ohio State's like I think the biggest rivalry in sports, all around the world. Because I mean, there's fights every year. There's a mutual respect among each team because we like everybody knows. Oh, Michigan wants to just destroy Ohio State. Ohio State wants to destroy Michigan. But you know, in a 12-game college season, if you can beat Ohio State or you can beat Michigan, it's almost like your season was a complete success.
Yeah.
Permian losing this game to Midland Lee for a district title is I'm surprised at how they rallied and earned their way to a playoff berth.
Yeah, this just to relate it to another sport. This is kind of like the 2005.
Sorry, did you guys like your book?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh
Did you
yeah,
really?
it was so
Oh,
good.
good.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you liked
Especially
it.
just coming off of like the football season, just like being it, cause like it's sad whenever like a season ends, but like being able to just like read it and like get back into it just
Yeah,
for like
totally.
a couple of weeks.
Good. I'm
Maybe
so
as
glad.
like a spectator, I like reading this too, just because
Like
it kind of made me
spectating.
feel like I was like at the
Pretty
games
cool.
again.
Yeah.
You guys are talking about some cool stuff.
I love the I like that when you can find something like nonfiction and you realize it's like real and you can still like
Yeah.
really enjoy it, the book itself.
I love anything football in the first place, but this is nonfiction. It's first. I talked about my book review. It's like, it's basically a primary source to their season.
Good.
Is some kind of tension or something?
Book
It's
clubs.
book clubs, Mr. Rollins. Come on.
Even cooler.
Yeah.
I like that though. I like
What
that you
animal
guys
is that
really
for?
enjoyed
Is
it.
there paragraphs in
It was like a
Yeah.
beneficial.
Yeah.
And probably like you related, like you knew what was
Oh,
true and
yeah.
what wasn't, because you were like, oh, that's.
When you hear this,
Okay.
well, the first 10, 15 minutes, it's us talking about our season.
Yeah,
and
but-
this.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Sorry for interrupting you. I mean, obviously, I just wanted to hear enjoying your book club for a hot
Pretty
second.
good.
Nah,
Good.
it's
Did you read it too?
I just started sitting here listening. Pretty good.
Good. Very good. You guys have a
Good.
podcast.
Oh, you want to start a
I'm
podcast?
going to make a podcast at some point, I'm telling
Maybe we
you.
should do that for the
Do it.
after the next set of book club. We'll make you guys do a podcast or something.
Do it.
We'll do a podcast.
Podcast.
We'll do that podcast.
Definitely.
Cool. All right. Go have fun.
Okay.
I don't know about that one.
No, like the podcast.
I don't know what that is.
It's like when people
I'll
talk.
tell you
It's like a YouTube video. So,
Continue.
do you want to talk about more about the football? Or
I
like,
was gonna say something. I
Go
forgot
ahead,
what I
go
was
ahead, you
gonna
say it.
Go ahead.
Do you remember what you were gonna say?
All right.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I
Okay.
remember what I was gonna say. It was like a. What are you doing?
Just keep talking.
Okay. Well, it was like a. It was kind of like in the 2005 Champions League final when Liverpool went down 3-0 to AC Milan, but then in the second half, in a matter of I think it was 30 minutes, they scored 3 goals to tie up the game, and then they won the game in penalties and secured their 5th European championship. And it was a great thing to see a team that was down 3-0 to one of the best defenses in the world come back and beat them in extra time and penalties. And it was great. It kind of relates to Permian, how they came back from their season and they went 7-2 after starting 2-2.
So another thing that I was thinking about while reading this was these kids grew up in Texas, which I know like some parts of Texas aren't the best place, and I realized like
Have you seen Odessa? Have you ever looked up Odessa?
it's like
poor.
yeah, it's
It
not
looks
bad.
poor.
That's not very.
So they
For the most part.
I always take for granted like us living in Abington and how like good of a school I guess you can say we are, and how like privileged we are. But like after reading this, like some of these kids, like they had a lot to go through, even with playing in like a championship football team like they did. Like their rivals that we were talking about before. Like they were also like their two towns were in like an economic battle with like I forget what it was. Maybe oil.
I mean, yeah, it is big down there. There are.
I forget what it was.
If you
But
look up pictures of Odessa, the outskirts of Odessa, you just see oil rigs.
yeah, so like they were in this huge battle with like economic wise, and they wanted to like they both were trying to like make it big. If you get what I'm saying, and like these kids like they were pushed to go into the work for into God.
You know, you talk about like they were trying to make it big. I almost thought of it a little bit differently. I completely thought about Berwick football when I was reading this. Berwick football, you know, historically they're great, and they're still good. I'm not saying they're not good, but you know, when Coach Curry was at Berwick, it was almost like you come through the program, win a state title, win a district title, maybe a few of them. After you're done that, you know, you grow up, you go to school, maybe you play college football, maybe you don't. You come back to Berwick, and your son plays for Berwick.
That's what I was trying to.
it's
Yeah,
part
that's what I was
of
trying to get at.
Permian, you know, Don Billingsley, his father won a state title for Permian in 1972 or 73, I believe. When Don is raised in Odessa, what's his expectation? You are gonna win. You're gonna get a state championship at Odessa Permian,
So like
and then your kid's gonna do it like in a few years.
so these kids had pressures put on them basically to like they had to fall like many of their parents were part of like the oil rigs, so they were like told like the way to make it big is to come back and like go into these oil rigs as like the family business type thing. So they had
Your
all
kid's
that.
playing Odessa Permian football.
So while they're
else.
playing football in Texas, which is never an easy thing, and a lot of these kids weren't like in the best situation. Like they lived in like these like raggedy like houses, and like they didn't have it like
Like the Shikellamy of Texas.
What?
You know where Shikellamy is?
I do not.
In Pennsylvania?
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
they said in
it's,
Texas.
it's actually, that's kind of like what I see when I think of this. Am I thinking of the right thing?
It's like it's just not like they're
I mean,
not in the
that-
best
like, when I
living
was reading this,
situation.
Yeah, I was
Well,
thinking.
to keep good grades, to play Permian football, to go get a good like
I would almost
education.
disagree with the grades because now I will say this. You know, I talked about Dallas Carter and their kids weren't even eligible in the end. The Permian kids, they weren't doing school. I think here at Abington we stress, you know, sports and everything are great, but in the end you're not going to be playing sports for money as an occupation your whole life. Maybe a few of us will be lucky and play professional sports. We don't know. But at Permian,
Will Stevens is playing professional sports.
I like already am. But at Permian, it's not your. You don't when we. You know, I go to school and I take it seriously because I know that I'm not going to be playing football my whole life, and it's not going to carry me.
It's not gonna
throughout my whole
provide
life.
you. It's not gonna provide you.
Yeah, the odds of me making a complete living off of just football is not a thing. In Permian, their expectation is something like that's going to happen. So these players, they try to get decent grades because they want to make sure on Friday night they're
That they can
able to
play.
suit up.
Yeah.
It's not because their expectation is I'm probably going to come back and work at the oil rig.
Their hearts were dead set on playing football,
Yep.
and I feel like that was another big theme. Because I remember, I forget when in the book, but I think some of the kids were like 135, like they were like smaller kids,
Oh, but they love
But
Permian
they-
football.
but like these 135-pound kids were playing like Permian football and going out there and like winning state championships. Like it doesn't matter like how big you are. It's all about
it's
like
about the heart you put into
Yeah.
it and the hustle and the work, and that goes for everything really. School, especially.
I think I'm going to talk a little about my college recruitment because I just started doing that recently within the month. Back then, and I'm talking in the '80s especially when this occurred. It's all about you don't have to be big because strength and conditioning programs weren't necessarily the thing. Back then, if you went in there and you were physical, and you got down when it came down to business, you did it. Just like these Permian kids, you won.
you can always train to get faster and stronger and bigger, but you can't train a heart to be like more into something. If you get what I'm saying.
Now, we have some time left. I think we have to talk
I
about.
think we have like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
exactly.
good.
We have some time.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes.
2, 1.
How about,
We have exactly 5 minutes.
then we should talk a little bit about the postseason and what happened after. Initially, I think just like any season, when you lose in the playoff, especially if you win that game against Dallas Carter, you play in the state title, and they could not do that, and especially the expectations of playing at Permian. The whole
Oh, yeah.
community's mindset is you're gonna make that state title and they're gonna win it. When you don't even make it, and that team could have won it. If they beat Dallas Carter, they were gonna win the state title because Judson was not. They were a good team.
They had the people and they had the heart. It was just a lot of seasons come down to just one game, and I feel like this.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's like what's that? It's like that All-Star commercial, and the guy who says it happens.
It's almost like you can't. You just feel bad for the kids, but I know like briefly in the book it talks about how like some of the community members, people in the community, like they just weren't happy. You know, some of those people like did not play football and they don't realize the true struggle. Of,
I
like,
hate that. I hate that so
Yeah.
much. So like when parents talk about like, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. Like
They
this
don't
team
understand.
stinks. Like they've never been in the locker room.
I'd like to see them suit up.
They've never experienced. They've never
That's why I
like
don't
played
talk
the
bad.
sport like we do, especially like in this day and age. And like
because
you
everything's
can
filmed.
Yeah.
Your character's constantly questioned. Your heart is constantly questioned. People want to know what you're all about and how you're going to run yourself when things go down. And you know, people don't understand how them making playoff in a sport is great. Especially in football, because I'm not going to bash any sports. But football is such a it's so psychological, and it's a mental game, and it's also a physical game. And Shane, you know, when it's starting to get week 8, 9, 10, your body is destroyed.
Yeah.
You do not feel good going to practice, and that's why once you get farther in the season, we instead of wearing full pads on early in the week, we just cut it down. We just wear shoulder pads, no pants.
Yeah.
We do not hit as much. We use bags.
I mean,
And-
you really can.
And because if you do, you're risking injury, and you're already destroyed.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
you cannot.
Yeah.
You know, a Friday or Saturday afternoon, you're ready to go. You want to get that. You know that because in a way of football, in a way of football, the jarring feeling of hitting somebody, it's almost like a. I don't want to say a high, but you
It's an
that's
adrenaline
what you
rush.
look for
Yeah.
when you play.
Yeah, as a spectator, I could kind of see what you're talking about. How like throughout the season, you come out like the first. I'm at every home game I can be at, and at those first couple home games, you guys are out ready to go. You guys are like all over the place, but like as the season goes on, like you start to pick up some injuries. You start to get maybe you have a knock, and you know it happens.
And, like-
but you still give it your all, and you still have the heart and the hustle, and that's what really counts.
And like I don't like when I was little, I used to get nervous before every game,
Me too.
and like you
yeah.
still do now. Like you get those
I get more nervous
butterflies
now.
in your stomach, and you feel nauseous. But like that first hit of the game, it's all gone, and you're playing. You realize you're playing a game, and you're there to have fun.
I
So
almost.
like I enjoy it. Like you
I mean,
take it for what you have.
I know the Permian players, they think this. I know I try to do this when I come out for a game. You never know if that play could be your last play ever. Try to make
You have to
every
do
play
everything
worth
you
it.
can.
And my mindset when I go out there is like, I like to play for myself in a way. I'm a little selfish in that way that I want to get that self-satisfaction when I'm out there. Like, I got to tackle, I got a good block.
But when
Um,
you do that, you help the team too.
But I'm not out there fending for myself because I know there's 10 other guys on the field.
Yeah.
And I know there's a bunch of other guys on the sideline that wish they were out there with me. And I take a lot of pride in being able to be out there. And also when you look up in the stands and there's people watching you, I almost
That's
feel
all.
like-
That's the best feeling ever.
it's
You walk out and you see that full.
you
that
almost
full.
feel like you have to give them something.
Yeah.
You have to give them something to be proud of. You have to give them something to be proud about. And I think that's exactly what these Permian players did, despite some people acting the way they did. Despite the loss. The kids. And people don't understand the struggle of the game.
And just to wrap it up, because I think we're close on time. Is I like
I have
how
one more point after we're done.
you want to do it now. 'Cause-
When
yeah,
you're
do
done.
it.
Okay, so
It's
basically,
at the end of the book.
I felt like this was a great season to write a book about. Like they could have picked any season where they won like a state championship.
To pick the
They
struggle.
picked the season where they probably
They
had one of the
picked it.
most struggles, and
Yeah.
Yeah, they picked the season that really showed what they were.
they
made
show
out
like
of.
what a true football team has to like. They have to come together and work hard and fight.
My final point I think the last part of the book is when Coach Gary Gaines, he's going through the depth chart, and he's almost has a tear in his eye, and he's getting rid of, that's Coach Gaines, and he's getting rid of all the names of the seniors that were playing, and he's moving up the juniors and sophomores that are going to be taking the reins. I almost think of that, it's hard when you lose a senior class because some of those guys may never show up again.
Yeah.
And those kids give you everything to have a successful program. And
Yeah.
it's just like they're gone.
Like I noticed, I was at the last home game, and a lot of the players, not even the seniors, a lot of the juniors too, like they were in tears because they knew it was gonna be one of their last games.
I grew up mostly with our grade and the grade above us.
Mhm. It's like we lost a piece of our family. You know what I'm saying?
So yeah, when you do that, it's like we're in the weight room together, and
Getting big.
yeah,
Getting
we're
yoked.
trying to get as big as we can because we want to have a successful year. We show up in the summer when it's hot and nobody wants to be there, and we're running, and you're sweating, you're losing weight. Doubles, you're constantly sweating. I mean, I told you guys there's 2 practices, I lost 10 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
and if I show up and I don't have you guys to be there, it wouldn't be worth it for me. So
So yeah,
my boy Tyreek right here.
great book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give it
I
a
recommend it to
9 out of
anybody.
10.
That was a
Really
pretty.
nice.
Oh, is it over?
No, you can talk. We have to take a picture now. We had a spectator, Tyreek.
Aw, let me get a good picture, bro.
Yeah, how about have Tyreek film us quick?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then when you film us around, just press that button right there.
The middle button, buddy.
No, not the middle one. That one, that little one to the right.
Camera one?
Yeah, the camera one.
Come on, what are you doing?
Get out. That's fine. Dude, can I get one?
No, it's for book club.
By the way, your brother's a retard.
I know.